Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 5th episode of Shattered Convictions. Today, we have an amazing episode for you tonight. Big conversation about something that is happening that every single American knows about. We're going to be talking about immigration. It was the referendum of the last election. It's in the mouths of many Americans talking about this particular issue, mainly because it comes with Donald Trump's power. What does he have the power to do? Does he have a public mandate to conduct immigration policy however he fits, sending ICE like the Gestapo, grabbing people with masks on? Or does it make more sense because immigration has been a big issue and Biden administration particularly did almost nothing about it? We see this culminating with the gigantic protests. What is it?
No Kings.
No Kings protest, where millions of people have gone to the streets to argue about this particular issue. Today we have an amazing guest from last time. John, how you doing?
Pretty good, Izzy. How's it going? Thank you for having me once again. Two children of immigrants talking about immigration.
Who would have thought?
The founding fathers, probably.
Founding fathers would have thought. So particularly with this issue, what do you think about the No Kings protests? Do you think that they're doing more harm than good? Do you think that they're, hitting the head on the nail? What do you think they're doing?
So I have thoughts about the No King protest. We talked a little bit about it before the other day, just us talking, but like I mentioned before, I think it started with with the right intentions and with good intentions, but I think it got hijacked by the establishment. You know what I mean? Like Nancy Pelosi, of all people, snapping a crown and claiming no kings is crazy to me. You know what I mean? She's been in Congress uncontested for 40 years. You know what I mean? Insider trading, amassing wealth beyond measure, And like, if anybody's the definition like of an oligarch or monarchy in this country, it's Nancy Pelosi. You know what I mean? Like, so like I think the sentiment is there, and like the intention is there, and it's good, but I think it got hijacked by the establishment. And like I made the joke, like, if Cory Booker's at your protest, it's not a real protest. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it kind of got hijacked a bit,
Yeah, I think you make a very fair point with Nancy Pelosi, particularly, again, with the insider trading. She is kind of like the queen of establishment.
Elizabeth Warren, another one.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren, another one. But outside of that, I kind of understand in terms of having these people at the protest, because it kind of has a big wide net that you want a lot of people coming in talking about this particular issue, because it is one of those left-right issues they were talking about. Because, for example, the Republicans and the right-leaning side of America has been talking about immigration for a very long time. Even before Donald Trump was elected, there was a big issue with immigration. When he got elected, that was the number one thing he ran on. And in 2020, we had the Biden administration take over, and they kind of dropped the ball with immigration to the point where they allowed 10 million illegal immigrants to come into the country without like a court date or anything like that, where they're just kind of here. And there's a big conversation happening with what do we do with the people who just came in, and what do we do with the large population of illegal immigrants that are in the country currently. And again, talking about the right-left divide, which typically whenever we are talking about an issue that's a left-right divide, you're probably missing the point, because most of the time it's kind of beyond that.
Right,
but with this, it's kind of split between party lines. Between a lot of right-leaning people think that Donald Trump has a popular mandate to conduct immigration policy and deport a lot of illegal immigrants into the country. The question becomes, is that just? Is that a right thing to do? And also, too, the way he's conducting it, if that kind of harms him more than helps him. What do you think about that?
I definitely agree that the manner in which he's going about it definitely harms him, because, dude, it's crazy to me that federal agents are masked, you know what I mean? And like withholding their ID in a federal capacity, you know what I mean? Like it sets a dangerous precedent and a slippery slope, because like it starts with immigration, right? But then like Donald Trump is very clearly goes after like political enemies, and like once he gets enough of that power where he could just send ICE or the National Guard or whatever, you know what I mean? I think it becomes a slippery slope where, like, my main issue with the MAGA thinking point on this is that they don't think it'll happen to them, so they don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, as long as it's happening to brown people or other immigrants, it doesn't matter. But as soon as it starts, like, I argue with Brazilians and like Portuguese people whose like parents don't even speak English. You know what I mean? And it's like, dude, you think whether they have their papers or not, you think like an American is gonna care? You know what I mean? Like, you've been here for 30 years, can't speak the language. Like I think the manner in which it's devolving is breeding further, not distrust, but like I guess like what's the word, like negativity, you know what I mean? And like
animosity.
That's the word I was looking for, you know? And like it's dangerous when you start like the word illegal immigrants, you know what I mean? Like how's a person illegal? You know? Undocumented, sure. But how's a person, especially on stolen land? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, I disagree with that point. I think people can be here illegally. It's just a matter
right,
of phrase of like
but the
how
phrasing,
you're going to phrase
but the
it.
phrasing dehumanizes. You know what I mean? And it makes.
I don't think so particularly. It's like saying like illegal alien, right? Like, yes, when we say alien, maybe in the common sense, like, okay, this person is from a different planet and they speak Marsanese and they can speak to you telepathically. Like, I think there's that, but it's a point of like that's the actual definition of the word alien. It's like you're not from
right,
here.
yeah.
And the same thing with illegal. It's you enter the country illegally or you overstayed a visa.
For sure.
You're here not under.
I understand.
You know, so it's like I don't think there's I don't really agree with that, but I do think that what you said I agree with. Like all in all, with the fact that we don't want federal employees or federal agents to be masked, not showing identification, and grabbing people and disappearing them off the streets.
Right. Unmarked vehicles.
Even if you think that we should deport every illegal immigrant from the country, which I don't think so, that's just a terrible thing, terrible look, and you're just going to cause people to not want to support your public mandate or your public people supporting this. So I think 100% it's a big issue, and that's going to be the biggest problem with Donald Trump's administration, particularly when it comes to election time, whatever, in a couple months, where Republicans are going to have to now try to get that particularly Hispanic or Latin American vote, which a lot of Latin Americans went and started voting Republican,
right?
Because they're more focused on.
They fell for the sweet talk, you know, like.
I don't even think that's the case. I think people are more, people are becoming more nationalistic. People are becoming more focused on being like America first, and I think Donald Trump kind of messaged that a lot better than Kamala Harris.
For sure.
And a lot of Americans who are Hispanic heritage or Latino, they saw that, they resonated with that, and they wanted to produce that because their country is here in America. But the problem is now that we have basically the Gestapo running around in masks, like with ICE, arresting people who are American citizens, throwing them in jail for multiple days. This is the biggest problem. It's like, if there's no law and order, if there's no mechanism in how you're actually getting these people, seeing their identification, making sure that we're able to see if they're immigrant or not, you're going to get American citizens who look brown or maybe don't speak English. You speak English without an accent.
That's part of the slippery slope, because it goes into you're just what's the word? Like when police stop people just because they look like, you know what I mean?
Profiling.
Profiling. You're profiling at this point. You know what I mean? You're not the right shade. You're gonna get asked for your papers, which to me is just crazy that like we live in America and everybody always jokes that like show me your papers is a German thing.
Papers, please.
You know what I mean? And it's like, dude, look at outside. Like, like as Americans, we should be allowed to walk the street and not be asked for our papers. Like
100%.
Like randomly. Like it's crazy to me. And then people say that. Like that point of view that I have is un-American. And it's like, how, dude? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it is American. Like if a cop comes up to you, asking for your ID for no reason, I think it's the American thing to do to tell you, shove it. No, I'm not giving you my identification. I didn't commit a crime. Take a walk. Yeah, exactly. I think that's pro-America because it's like, what does it mean to be American? I think it's like flexing your rights as an American citizen. For
sure.
Freedom of speech, open dialogue. Like that's all part of it. And when it comes to a point where Donald Trump is literally throwing people in jail or ICE. But it's essentially Donald Trump
by proxy,
putting people in jail because they can't prove on the spot that they're legal citizens.
Right.
It's like
there's
dude,
I have to walk with my passport everywhere now.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like that's crazy to me.
Very weird.
Very un-American values. Like for like this make America great and this like utopia that they push in nostalgia. It's like, dude, back then you would have called them a fascist for asking for your papers. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy to me. Like.
So in terms of immigration in general, right, it's very easy to criticize the way Donald Trump is actually executing the immigration policy. But by principle, right, do you think he does have a public mandate? Let's say he wasn't doing it in the manner he's doing it, right? And he was just deporting people, not, grabbing them off the street or showing up at their job or showing up at a court hearing or showing up at their kid's graduation. And he's doing it in a manner that has, it's repeatable. It's makes sense. It's by law. Do you think he has the right to deport a large amount of illegal immigrants from the country?
Is he giving them due process?
Let's say he was
in
doing the
that
due process.
scenario, then I would say, well, yeah, because Obama deported like 8 million people during his term. You know what I mean? Like, I may be fluffing the numbers, but I know it's a high number.
It was a very high number.
And Biden also deported plenty too. Like, sure, he let in a lot, but they also deported. But it's like going back to the manner in which you do it. Like, if you get due process, sure, you're treated like a human being. You know what I mean? But now getting disappeared off the street and sent to El Salvador, you know what I mean? Until you're proven innocent, you know what
Guilty
I mean?
until
Like,
proven innocent.
right? Like, that I don't agree with, and that I think needs to be cut immediately, you know? And like, if anything, it also endangers federal agents, you know? Because like, look at the reactions people have now to ICE, and like, you know, like it's gonna breed violence against themselves, if anything, you know, for the manner that they're doing it, because they're acting like thugs, you know? Like, people are gonna respond to that in a manner that's not peaceful, you know? Like,
So, like, from the perspective of someone on the right, I think that we should restrict immigration to a certain extent, right? We shouldn't have open border policies like we did with Biden. I think most people agree with that. I think I see a big movement of people who are criticizing the way Donald Trump is pushing this administration, or pushing the way that he's doing the immigration policy, but they kind of have an issue with immigration policy in general. So I know a lot of liberals, speaking to them in general, if Donald Trump was executing this in any way, even if he was following the law or even if he was doing due process, they would still have an issue with deportation just in general. Do you think that you think there's a big swath of people from the left who see it that way and think that we should have a very open immigration policy? They agree with Biden, or you think it's still a lot of people more so are issued with the manner of which he's doing it?
I think that's a good question. I think if liberals and Dems, if it was Trump still doing it, I think they still would have had an issue just because it's Trump, you know? But like, liberals and Dems are funny because then they'll ignore it when a Dem is doing it. You know what I mean? And like, I made this post the other day that like, liberals, more so from like leaders, you know what I mean? And like, they give off this air of like holier than thou, but they're the same thing. You know what I mean? And like, liberals aren't anti-fascist in the slightest. You know, they support fascism as long as it's quiet and like brushed under the rug and like not in your face, and a Dem is doing it. You know what I mean? Like, then it's all good. You know what I mean? So like, the question is tricky because like there's such a vendetta for Trump from the left that like even if he was doing it the proper way, there would still be issues. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It feels more like bait politics at this point instead of actual like constructive getting to the solution. You know, am I making any sense?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. It's kind of like a tug and pull politics, right, where it's like the left goes in with immigration policy and they don't want basically any restriction, because if we just take off of the way Biden was doing it for his 4 years versus Donald Trump, where he's doing it to the point where ICE is literally used as a Gestapo, right, coming in and arresting people. It's two extremes. The majority of the Americans are in the middle. Why do you think there's this big disconnect between how we're doing it and what Americans want?
What do you mean? Phrase that question a little. I don't think I follow.
So why do you think that there's a big divide between, like, a lot of Americans think, like, for example, if you were to ask most Americans, immigration is a good thing, depending on how you do it, how many you let in, whether or not you mandate that people assimilate into the country. I think that's a big issue, because a lot of people have issues with people immigrating here and not assimilating, not learning English, kind of staying in their own cliques without kind of integrating into wider society. Right. So, like, I think majority of people will say, if people come here, they assimilate to the country, they speak the language, right? They want the betterment for what's America. People want them here. There's another faction who kind of don't want any immigration, legal or illegal. You get it to more like the kind of
white nationalist.
Yeah, white nationalist, Christian nationalist vibe, where they don't want any kind of immigration. Like, but there's a big difference between even the way that Donald Trump is doing it for those people, right? I don't think he's doing it in the way that those people want. Like, for example, Nick Fuentes doesn't like the way Donald Trump is doing immigration policy because he's not doing it harder enough.
Right.
But a lot of Americans don't like the way Donald Trump is doing it. They don't like the way Biden is doing it. Why is there this big divide between when the left gets in control and they start dealing with immigration versus when the right gets in control? They want immigration versus the wider American populace.
It's a good question. I feel like I'm not qualified enough to give like a legitimately like intelligent answer, but I'm gonna try because I guess I'm just have that hubris, I guess. But honestly, I couldn't tell you because I feel like more so like immigration is it always low-key devolves back to the same arguments, but like I feel like immigration is used to keep us arguing with each other. You know what I mean? Like again, going back like two extremes, and neither of them are correct. You need to find like a happy middle ground. Because overall, I would say immigration is good for America. Immigration overall, you know, like I'm kind of losing my train of thought here because like that question is a little bit above me. I just think more so like they push it so that like they make us think immigration and immigrants themselves are the issue, where I don't think that's true. They're used kind of as like the scapegoat, you know what I mean, to keep us bickering with each other instead of like looking at the real root cause, which if you look a little bit higher, you know what I mean? Like we were talking a little bit before about like Americans not wanting to do certain jobs that like immigrants do because they don't want to get paid what the immigrants are getting paid. But then it falls back onto like, why shouldn't the person pay Americans what they're worth instead of, you know what I mean, selling out to like cheaper labor, you know? Like
I think that touches on like kind of the biggest thing with immigration, because I don't necessarily agree with you that this is just an issue where people, it's like kind of meant to kind of bicker amongst each other. Because like, for example, when we talk about like the transgender issue, where I think majority of the time that's pushed as it's a kind of a slam dunk on the right, you know, well, like women are women, men are men. It's a slam dunk, super easy conversation for them. On the left, I think they have a kind of like moral argument, and then they feel like better, or they kind of like they feel good whenever they feel superior whenever they have an issue that they can talk about and be like, oh, you're not actually as virtuous as me.
Right.
So I think there's a reason why we bicker on that side. With immigration, I think that there's like legitimate like conditions that immigration brings in, particularly illegal immigration, mass amounts of illegal immigration, particularly with low skilled labor. Because you see with like wage depreciation with low skilled labor, when you import a huge amount of people into the country, adding into the fact that AI is going to start automating a lot of jobs away.
That's a good point.
It's like we're at a position right now in the country where we can't necessarily facilitate dumping a bunch of people into the country who a majority of them are low skilled laborers. Like we're not talking about H-1B visas, because that's a whole different conversation, which we can get into, of course. But we're talking about low skilled labor, which kind of depreciates the value for everyday Americans. So I understand where it comes to a point where it's like the bickering side of it, where like the powers that be like these issues because we stay divided.
Right.
And I think it's more so they're using it in that way.
For sure.
But not necessarily designed that way. I think like the coal,
that's a
in the
good
engine,
the
coal in the engine is, I think those kind of like pressures on like, you know, a lot of people can't afford a house. A lot of people are going into debt to buy food. A lot of people are, you know, working these low skilled labor jobs where now they have to worry about, number one, AI automating their job away. And now people who are willing to take a lower value for their work because they're illegal immigrants, and they have to. And that comes into another issue, which is like America is so dependent on illegal immigration. For sure. It's from the agriculture industry, from the
so many sectors,
from the what's it called? Even though this is like high skilled labor, so like construction, you know, there's like demolition crews or whatever. There's like also high skilled labor, like plumbing, electrician, all that stuff. Where we're getting to a point where I just lost my train of thought a little bit. There's a balancing act that has to happen.
Right.
There's a balancing act that happens between like Americans and like immigrants, because I think a lot of Americans, majority of Americans, I think they like immigration. I think they like the fact that there is a little bit more cultural spice here in America.
I guess it also depends where in America, because like we also come from an area which is diverse compared to like let's say like Nebraska, you know what I mean, and like some, not even the major cities, but like some town, you know what I mean. Like I think like for a lot of people, especially Americans, different is scary, you know what I mean. So like people like to keep in what's safe, you know what I mean, and new cultures are scary for a lot of people who never left their towns or never left their state, you know, like, so I think location also matters, you know, like, because I would agree that like day-to-day people like on the street, most don't really have an issue with immigration or like the Habibi who opened the store, you know what I mean. Like I think it comes more so from, I guess, I don't know if xenophobia is the right word, but like just being afraid of change and like outside forces, to go back into that, like I mentioned before, like it leans more into like the white nationalist kind of, you know, because like nobody ever complains about like French immigration, you know what I mean, or Italian or illegal Canadian immigration, you know what I mean, or people from Sweden, or you know what I mean. They never complain about those immigrations, You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always super focused on like.
I think it's particularly funny too because it's like, for example, I think a lot of Latinos and Hispanic people are kind of naturally conservative, from what I've noticed.
Just culture-wise,
and I think culturally they probably have a lot more to agree with to these like Christian nationalist types who, you know, like for example, I'm a Christian, right? You could say I'm a nationalist because I think we should be putting America first in almost every single regard. But I mean that has a negative connotation because like they want like a white purity country.
But that's what it is though, because
that's the biggest issue with that. And I think when it comes to a point, it's like you don't really see them arguing about that, even though the majority of the time white people from Europe are coming to the country. Right. They're liberals. They're left leaning.
Right.
So it's like,
but they never.
I would rather have.
It's because they associate. You know what I mean? The word like illegal alien or whatever with brown people. You know what I mean? Like we've low-key been conditioned like that because like even. Like, let's say just hypothetical, like a crazy hypothetical, because like I remember Trump and Vance and all them talking about like these MS-13 and this and that. Imagine Sweden's biggest gang, you know what I mean? Like the Hoifendorf or whatever they're called, you know what I mean? Like came here and they were committing like mass atrocities or whatever. Like they wouldn't blame it on like Swedish immigration, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think like it comes to a point, right? Because like for example, if there was you could see an uptick in crime after you allow like a huge portion of people to come into the country and you look at the demographics of the crime and it matches, then you can make that distinction, right? But if it's just like a blanket, like, oh, okay, we have immigration and there's crime, therefore all the crime being committed is immigrants, then that's a big issue. Like, for example, you see a lot of right-wingers, they'll kind of point out these specific instances where an illegal immigrant commits a heinous crime. Obviously, everyone condemns it. Nobody likes to see any of that happening. But they'll kind of push that towards the wider immigration discussion, which I don't like because it's like messing with numbers, using emotion, where it's like you're can look at
certain things.
Exactly. You can look at the objective like stats of like, okay, who's committing the crime, what's going on here, and you don't have to look at these specific instances where these things happen and kind of use it as like this happens all the time. Like, I don't like any of that in every single regard. But I think you see that's particularly with immigration because it's like an easy thing to do, specifically because right now like they're running on it. So when like I forgot what the young woman's name is who passed away, who was murdered. Lincoln Riley.
Irina? Oh, I thought you were talking about the Ukrainian immigrant.
The Ukrainian one. Yeah, but that's a whole different conversation. But like with her, for example, I think they used her death politically to kind of be like, okay, like
to push agendas.
An illegal immigrant did this, like. This is going to keep happening.
Like, if you don't close the borders. Question, speaking of that, is like I never understood how like a lot of, especially MAGA, use that as like a gotcha. You know what I mean? Like for like, oh, left is bad. Like I never understood what that has to do with like, you know what I mean? Like
I think it's like this is the thing. It's like we have a constant battle between our logic and our emotions.
For sure.
Right? And I think that like as much as you think you're a logical person, you're not. Your emotions rule your whole world. For the majority of people.
Agreed.
And specific instances where you think there's an issue and then something happens and you can point at it and reinforce it.
Right.
Like that's always going to be in the memory of people.
Right.
So they're always going to use that.
I just never got the connection between like that horrible stabbing and the left. You know what I mean? Like,
what do you mean?
Because like I hear people like every time they bring up like left violence or whatever, they bring up that, but like the dude wasn't like a leftist or you know what I mean? It was just
he was just
just a guy who was mentally ill who stabbed a woman to death, you know? But like,
well, I don't think they were saying left is fine. I think it was like people were more
because I get that it's a left city, you know what I mean? Like, and maybe that's the gotcha because it's like a left-run city, but like
you talking about the murder of the Ukrainian girl on the train, right?
Because like I've had people use that, like, well, what about like this lady and what the? I just don't like it has nothing to do with the left, you know what I mean? Like that's us like. Anytime somebody gets stabbed in New York on the subway, is that a left versus right thing? You know what I mean?
I think the conversation more so, because I think it does somewhat have to do with the left. And I'll say why. Because the reason why this person was let out so many times is because of leftist policies. Kind of soft on crime policies that allow people to get out of jail and not stay in prison. I think if you're committing violent crimes...
That's more of a counter than I ever got before. So that makes sense. You know what I mean?
But I don't think it's like when someone's like, oh, leftist violence. Like that wouldn't be part of leftist violence. It would be part of like why leftist soft on crime policies are bad for the country. And I think that's like, I think it's been played out. A lot of people are kind of sick and tired of this. Like someone commits a crime, you let him go because... You know, particularly it happens because the person's race. I think there is a conversation because it's like when there's an injustice that happens, right? Like for example, the two-tier justice system that in America lived in a long time from black and white people, where they think that any kind of, or for a long time, a lot of police targeting was towards these African American communities. There was a big portion of African Americans who were going to jail because of these racist policies.
For sure.
And now it's kind of like a pendulum swing where it's like we're all the way over here where it's like super racist, and then we swing to a point where it's like racist in the opposite direction where you're just allowing someone out because they're black.
But it's crazy too because like people tend to forget like a lot of what's happening now is still ingrained from back then in those mentalities. It's not that long ago. You know what I mean? Like it's recent history. You know, like the first black girl to go to an all-white school is like 60 something. You know what I mean? Like it's not that far back. You know, so I don't think it's swung because like in the other because even the left is racist. You know what I mean? They are. They spent all of 2 years not acknowledging Palestinians as people. You know what I mean? Like because they're brown. You know, like America's always been a more, this is gonna sound terrible, but always been low-key a racist country. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. I think like now it got more to extreme. I low-key, not to blame Obama, but I think it happened when Obama became president.
Thanks,
and, like,
Obama.
And like won in such like a landslide victory that like a lot of these crazy old racist like people like kind of went bonkers. You know what I mean? Like, and then we got like the far right, like the far right that came afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just yapping.
Yeah, I think I think there's parts of that I agree with. I think in terms of like that particular instance, I think people were also angry too because like the person said, "I got that white girl." Right. And then there was a lot of people on the left who were denying the fact that it was a possibly, I would think so, racially motivated crime towards white people.
Sure.
Because I think we have that now too, where it's like, I mean, there's people who hate white people because of the history and they're kind of brought up in this kind of TikTok space where they like are allowed to just say whatever they want towards white people.
There's still plenty of people that hate black people.
100%.
You know?
And I think
like
that's kind of the whole,
Asians
that's the whole issue
like,
where it's like that's I think where a lot of white people get angry and they start getting more towards that nationalistic bent or that white nationalistic bent where they're like legitimately racist. They become that way because they're told for a long time. And I don't know if we're going from immigration to like race
I mean, it's
discussion.
all connected, really. Honestly,
it is connected. I think the reason why there's a lot of white people who are angry and they even say like black fatigue and like they use these types of phrases is because a lot of white people are kind of like told to shut up, not talk about issues, otherwise you're racist. You saw that a lot during BLM. Like if you disagreed with BLM, which I did at the time, of the way they were conducting themselves, the actual business side of it, where they were just straight up scamming people, where you're just labeled as racist and it's just like you're done. Where it's like you could do a lot towards white people. You could say that they're evil, devils, blah, blah, blah. And you don't really get banned off social media. You don't really get mass social shaming. That. But if a white person does anything, it's like the biggest deal in the world, which I think it makes sense that's the case because of the history.
For sure.
So I understand why people I understand why people act rationally and they're not like 100% like, okay, we're going to treat everyone the same because people don't do that normally. Right. It's like we use our emotions with our logic and kind of make like special pleading, commit special pleading fallacies all the time where it's like I'm allowed, like you see this a lot with leftists, like specifically leftist women, these feminist types who are like super anti-men, super misogynistic or misogynistic.
Yeah.
Is that? I think that's the word. I almost never use that word ever. Misogynistic. I still don't even think that's a word. But they use that. But they're super like that because they think it's okay because they're women and they've been oppressed for so long. Where it's like I can understand the objective facts of that, but it doesn't give you the justification to do so.
Right.
So I think that's where a lot of that's where a lot of these racial tensions are coming from because it's like there's like a two-tier way of how people are reacting to racism. Where like if a white person's racist, it's like obviously totally condemned because that's kind of like the picture, like the picture of racism is white guy being racist towards black guy because of our history, because of history in general, not even just American history, but history all over the world.
Right.
So that's like kind of the picture people have. So when they think of racism, that's like the first thing they have, but they fail to realize that racism comes with a lot of different shapes, colors, sizes, and different situations.
So I would say overall, I like agree with you. I just think your terminology is a little wrong because I always make the point like white people can be racist, but people can't be racist to white people because racism itself is an institutionalized thing. You know what I mean? It's a system thing. People can be bigoted, you know what I mean? And like there could be bigotry and like from like other races towards white people, but inherently they can't be racist because the only people who truly really benefit from the current system is white people. You know what I mean? Like to its full extent. And like that's the way it's been built throughout our history, you know? Like Protestant white like identity, you know what I mean? Like so I don't think like going back, like you could be bigoted and like you said, it comes in all shapes and colors. That's more like bigotry and instead of full on like racism, because racism itself is more institutionalized. It's more of like
I disagree. I think we have a specific word for that. It's called institutionalized racism. So it's like the society. Well, yeah, of course, but
kidding.
No, you know what I mean. Like we have like a concept for that. So it's like if I'm saying someone can be institutionally racist, right? Unless they're like a president or something, which they have like direct objective power where they're pushing that. I would say like the majority of the time how people use racism is just like, I guess if I were to give a layman definition of racism, or even the definition if you were to look it up, would probably be like treating people differently based off the color of their skin, or thinking someone is inherently inferior based off the color of their skin, or holds superior values. Fair. So like when someone it is.
But again, that's our institution. You know what I mean? That's how.
I think now. I think it's that's completely why, different. I think now it's completely. I think we live in two different worlds. I mean, from back in the day till now,
for sure. But like a lot of it still has roots, you know what I mean, that haven't fully been uprooted, you know what I mean? Because like we also come talking from like a more progressive state, you know what I mean? Because like think about like the middle country states, you know what I mean? And like they have that same like mentality, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I think I never lived in those states, so I couldn't tell you the day to day.
Same.
I know from like, again, I'm an internet baby, like, you know, so
right.
I spend my time on the internet. My perception on how people are based off of I would just be honest with you, it is somewhat based off the internet when I'm talking about people in the Midwest and how they feel about certain things. It's like, it's not from, I never been there. I never been there.
I understand. That's normal.
But I think that like we are in a very different world. I think from a very young age, a lot of people, at least from my generation, because I was born in 2004, were taught to be like racism is like the utmost evil. Like that's like the worst thing you can do.
I grew up on that too.
And I think you grew up on that as well. I think like 90s, 2000s, you know, 2020s, you know, I think like we're living in a different world where I don't think racism is as big as a problem. Okay, so, not to say that it isn't a problem, but it's not as big as a problem.
I agree. But like the problem is like I agree in terms of like the people themselves, but then like look at all the people that still hold power for 50 years, you know what I mean, and like are still in the same, they're from that generation, you know what I mean, or like grandparents, or like these boomers are still everywhere in the government, you know what I mean, so like that mentality is still there with the older generation.
So what would be like,
you know, like
what would be an instance you can point to and be like, okay, this is like shows like institutionalized racism in the country today?
Revoking DEI would be that, you know what I mean? Because DEI was put in place to give opportunities to minorities and others, and predominantly white, like where they couldn't get opportunities before, like being a pilot or whatever, you know what I mean? So like revoking that, I would say, is institutionalized racism, you know, like
wouldn't you say
disappearing Kilmar Abrego to El Salvador, you know what I mean? Even though he was pending, you know what I mean? Like racism because he's brown, you know, like brown Americans getting picked up by ICE currently, even though they're American.
I definitely say you have a point there, 100%. Like during what's currently what's happening, I don't think it's coming from a point of like these people are inferior or we want to separate.
No, but it's already so ingrained. You know what I mean? That like,
because I think it's more so like you're trying to figure out who is the subject of the, like who is like the number one people who are committing the crime, right? Of illegal immigration. So when you see someone who's like not speaking any English and looks like they're from South America, not saying that this is a good thing or it's justified to do so, but it makes sense to be like, okay, like papers, please. You know, we're in a fascist dictatorship. Papers, please.
Like, dude, we live in Jersey, and it's happening. Where is their border around here? You know what I mean? Like in like border states, I can not to say that it's even good because even then you shouldn't.
Well, there's like a big issue with like people being shipped all across the country from like using trains, planes.
Right.
You know,
but like again, like as Americans, like American values and constitutionally, you're not supposed to just be getting stopped on the street randomly unless you're committing a crime. And this goes for illegal immigrants too, unless they're actively committing a crime that, or you know what I mean, or you already have a warrant,
like reasonable articulable suspicion that they're committing a crime.
Like a cop can't just stop you and like if a cop were to tell like just stop me here and be like, hey, let me see your ID, and I'm just outside smoking a cigarette, I'm gonna be like, dude, take a walk. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same
Keep it
for
pushing, buddy.
It's the same for like ICE agents. Like they have no authority to ask you for your papers unless you're in the process of committing a crime, have committed a crime, or are about to commit a crime,
Where they have a specific warrant for you.
or a
Kind of-
warrant, right?
Yeah, I think
But
you-
then
I think you
that's
make a
part of
very
the
fair
issue
point
too,
there.
because then like every time people, I've seen thousands of videos now. Like obviously you got to take videos with a grain of salt because push agendas and whatnot. But like every time I see ICE agents getting asked for like warrants or whatever, they start to back out. You know what I mean? Or they'll go back in their cars. You know what I'm saying? Like things like that is crazy to me. Like you shouldn't just be like, dude, like who are you and who am I to be like, hey Izzy, let me see your papers. Let me make sure you're American. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
true, very true. No, I think you make a very fair point there. Honestly, you got me. Checkmate. Right? You got me. That's a very fair point. I think with DEI, let's go back to DEI. I think that's like I think that's different. I think of that differently. Off the principle, we can talk about principle and then like what's like how to actually fix situation on the ground. So by principle, I disagree with it, mainly because it is. I think that is a definition of systematic racism, where you're saying
DEI itself?
Yeah, because you're saying because you're white, therefore we're going to give the opportunity to someone else, even though you could possibly be the best person for the job.
I understand
we're going to
that,
choose someone else.
but I think more because DEI is more so. Let's give these other people an opportunity who usually would have gotten glossed over because of their skin color, you know, or even women. You know what I mean? Women at one point were DEI also. You know what I'm saying?
We would never know that because you could say potentially that they're like I don't think anyone's equal.
Like I also agree that like I think it's a little bit of virtue signaling. You know what I mean? I'll admit to that. I think that's true too. But, like going back to like No Kings, I think the intention was there, and then it got like.
How about this? Can we agree on this? Let's say if there's a white person who's 1% better than a black person, they should choose the white person, or you think if they're equally as good, they should choose the black person because of DEI?
See, that's a good question. That's a morally great question because like. If the better candidate is chosen, then I would say the better candidate. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's what being anti-DEI is. It's saying that you should choose the better candidate. Of course,
I understand that.
Of course, with the Trump administration, I understand why people don't believe that they're going to choose based off of the fact that they are just objectively the better candidate. But I think in terms of with DEI itself, it incentivized people just hiring based off of their skin color or their gender.
But you still have to be qualified. You can't just hire somebody off the street.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people could be qualified, but it's like who is the most qualified, right? And it's saying, and I'm not saying it from a point of like,
but even like on the flip of that, like to use that, like DEI was introduced because back then, even if the black guy was 10 points more like qualified, they would give it to the white guy. That's why DEI was first introduced, is to like open the door for in like sectors and things that usually were glossed over with just white. You know what I mean? Like I get where you're coming from. Like I don't know, maybe it just got warped from like it was intentionally supposed to be. You know, like
if a white guy and a black guy are the equally, and it's impossible to be like, oh, these people are like equally as qualified because it's like we don't have like a ones and zeros level analysis.
We're not in an RPG, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're not in an RPG. You can look at someone's like attack stats and like speed.
Right.
But if we're like, okay, they're equally as qualified, and then you're saying I want to choose the black person for more diversity. I understand. I understand that, and I wouldn't necessarily be against that.
So let me ask you a question. Sorry to cut you off, but like, let's say they're both white guys. How does a person choose? They're both equally, but they're both white. Like, how does a company choose which one? It's the same question. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
now you're just adding race to it.
But
like,
that's the whole point, though, because it's like if the decision factor is race, I think that's wrong. You don't think so?
I mean, I could see the argument. And
the same thing with affirmative action. Like, I think that's why the Supreme Court ruled it. Did they rule it unconstitutional, or they just? I think they stopped that in majority of places because there was a lot of Asians, right? Asian Americans who are very good in terms of studying. Like we know that it's like a cultural thing where they're more inclined to be paying attention to their studies, doing their homework. You know, they're high on math scores on average, and we're like not accepting them into Harvard or into these big things because
I mean, that's its own barrel of worms.
But that comes from affirmative action, because if we're just looking at outcomes, right, and we're saying, oh, the outcomes must be the same, otherwise there must be racism here, I disagree with that. Right? I think that we should try to make the starting point as equal as possible, which is impossible, obviously.
Right.
It's impossible to do that. That's called communism. That it fails. But we're trying to make the starting point as equal as possible, or even if you're starting lower a peg, we can boost you up to the starting point. But from then,
But I
it
think
shouldn't
that's
be
what DEI was initially. You know what I mean? Because like it was bringing like minorities to the same starting level. You know what I mean? Like originally, you know what I'm saying? Like
So then the question is, when is discrimination based off race acceptable? Would you say?
never. I don't think you should ever.
But then you would
discriminate.
disagree with DEI.
Well, I'm not saying that. Like all I was saying is that like I understand why DEI was there. It was just to give opportunities. You know what I mean? Because then at the end of the day, going back to like how does a company choose between two white people who are the same amount of qualified? You know what I mean? Like it comes down to like a more person to person or like company to company basis on who they decide. You know what I mean? Does it make any sense?
Yeah, like for example, right? When I was saying with discrimination, like discrimination is neither good nor bad in a way. Let me preface my conversation. Don't clip me. Don't clip me.
I'm gonna
like
give you a chance.
when a 19-year-old kid goes to a bar and they ask for his ID.
What, a 9-year-old?
19.
Oh, 19.
Or
Okay.
18 or 17,
okay.
whatever. They go to a bar. They're denied based off their age, right? That is discrimination. I'm discriminating based off your age, right? We think as society that's okay. I think that's okay, right? Discriminating based off race and being like, you're not allowed to have this job because of your skin color, that's obviously evil. At what point is like, we know with age it's okay because we can see that two different people with two different age groups are unequal, like not necessarily inherently, but on average at a high point. So it's like, at what point is that okay? And does DEI fall into that? Like,
It's a pretty good question. With the age analogy, I think that kind of discrimination is okay. This is gonna sound real bad too, because this is gonna sound like eugenics.
Clip him. Everyone clip him.
It's gonna sound like eugenics.
Everybody
but like,
clip him.
It's scientifically backed. You know what I mean? Because at 18, like at the same time, like I think 21 is a little dumb. We're one of the only countries in the world to have a drinking age of 21. You know what I mean? Like at 18, you could die for your country, but you can't get a beer. You know what I mean? Like I low-key understand. Maybe it's like a mental development thing. You know what I mean? Because your brain is still developing at 18 and it's not fully developed until you're 25. But then it begs the question: why not make the drinking age 25? You know what I mean? Like because alcohol affects your development. You know what I'm saying? But it's gonna sound like eugenics, like because it's backed by science in a sense. But like I also agree that 21 is a dumb age for drinking. But like I don't know. I'm kind of losing the plot here a little bit. Like you kind of stumped me with that question. That's a good question because like how do you distinguish between like fully distinguish between the two, and like at one point does it become
justified or not,
morally like bankrupt or not? You know, like
because we all know that's like inequality is not good, right?
Agreed.
Like even monkeys know this. You give a monkey cucumbers. You give two monkeys there's like a study on this. You give two monkeys a cucumber, right, in a box. Right, they press a button, whatever. They get a cucumber each time they do it. Then one time you have a glass box so they can see each other. You give one of the monkeys a grape, and you give another monkey a cucumber. He's gonna be like, "Bro, I want a grape."
Right.
Like it's intuitive in our brains. Inequality is
instinct,
bad, right? Unless it's like my group versus your group, then it's like
but that's more taught.
That's more taught. That's more like cultural, whatever.
Because like I don't think anybody's born racist. You know what I mean? That's something you're taught as you get older. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Going back to the DEI question, like it's a good question. I need to do a little bit more research. I don't want to give like
you gotta think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't want to give like an ignorant statement. You know what I mean? Like, because overall, I would say DEI is good for the country because it gives the opportunity to a wider group of people who previously probably would have been ignored or overlooked. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm gonna do some more research,
100%,
so I could give you like a better response and our viewers.
So, I wanted to talk about a little bit, Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? She's big in the news right now because she is a right-winger who is kind of playing that game of like somewhat being a centrist, with healthcare. She's pushing hard on healthcare. And she recently on the Tim Dillon podcast had a conversation with him where she said, and this is a quote, "We have to do something about labor. And that needs to be a smarter plan than just rounding up every single person and deporting them," right? So she's a very right-leaning person, okay? She kind of is part of that whole Trumpian movement.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
She still supports the president wholeheartly, but she's been very critical on these things like Israel. She's been critical on healthcare in terms of Trump, right-leaning Trump, all that. And then now she's talking about immigration, where she's giving pushback on the Trump administration. So she's kind of setting herself up as a figure who is at least talking about her own issues and wanting to actually help the American people instead of like falling into party lines.
Right.
How do you think this affects the conversation
Of immigration
of a right-leaning conservative figure who is a congresswoman for Georgia, where she's coming in and criticizing the president on how he's doing it? And I think she taps into something a little bit more important. Sorry, I'm giving like kind of a long question.
Please. This is interesting.
Where it gets to a point where it's like she's talking about the labor issue, right? Because if you are doing this thing where you're scaring people to not show up to work,
Right.
we know that our country is dependent on illegal immigration. I think that's an immoral thing. I think we shouldn't be. But like losing my train of thought a little bit here with the question. But with that specific conversation where she talks about like
Israel?
No, not Israel. I'm blanking here.
I don't know.
Okay, specifically with the
immigration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm like blanking completely.
Or like disappearing people.
Yeah, with disappearing people, causing them not to want to show up to work.
The fear mongering.
Yeah, the fear mongering. I think a lot of our industries, like agriculture and like construction, is very heavily based off illegal immigration. There's a lot of illegal immigrants doing it.
For sure.
And how does this affect actual businesses who are running on this, and now a big portion of their people are not showing up to work? And like, does that negatively affect them if we're just deporting and grabbing a bunch of people, or moving from the country, and there's there's a big vacuum of labor? That's what I was trying to explain. Sorry, I wasn't cooking there.
We got there.
But we got there eventually.
Slow cooking all red. Yo, slow cooking makes the best turkey.
Yeah, I got all red. It looked like a pork chop. But what do you think about that in terms of like the company wise?
I just want to say before we get into that, like, it's crazy that like I'm hearing Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking. I'm like, dude, that's based. Like, that was not on my bingo card. You know what I mean? For me to be like, wow, I'm agreeing with MGT. That's crazy to me. To go back to like how it affects like the party, or I guess like the general consensus, I think we need more of that. You know, like we need people, same with Democrats, we need more people from within the party to call out their own party, you know, because like otherwise you just look like a puppet or like a yes man, or you know what I mean? And a lot of right wingers are starting to like notice too, like, dude, we can't just be disappearing people off the streets, you know, like that's not going to be a good move forward, and sets a dangerous precedent. And like talking about like scaring people from going to work, I don't know if you heard about like the South Koreans who got deported like 2 months ago from Georgia, and they were setting up a Hyundai warehouse, and like they were sent here with visas by Korea to set up the country, set up the warehouse, teach Americans how to build the cars and like run. And they all got deported in an illegal ICE raid. You know what I mean? And sent back to Korea after spending, like, I think it was like a week in a detention center, or a couple days or whatever. You know, like, I think we need more Marjorie Taylor Greenes to, like, people who were so indoctrinated to, like, because, like, if she is calling it out, then it gives me hope for, like, other people. You know what I mean? Because, like, Thomas Massey, you know what I mean? Republican, based. You know what I mean?
Massey.
Super based, but like he's already been like that. So people, but like if somebody like if Pam Bondi started to like criticize, I'd be like, hey, yo, you know what I mean?
Pam Bondi, she's cooked. If she started talking, I would be like, shut up.
It's just like an example to be like, you need somebody who's like that entrenched in it to start speaking out against it, to really like open up eyes in a matter of speaking. You know,
like Nancy Pelosi came out against insider trading. And started becoming like critical of Israel.
Right. I mean, you would also think like, and I don't know, maybe this is for Marjorie Taylor Greene too, because if Nancy Pelosi started criticizing like insider trading or this or that, I'd call her a hypocrite. You know what I mean? Like, and like, so maybe it's the same at MGT. Maybe she's just trying to like cover her bases in a way. But like, I don't know. Overall, I think it's good that like we need to call out our leaders. You know what I mean? At whatever level.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think there's a new class of politician who, and by her own words as well, she said this as well in the same interview, where telling the truth is beneficial. It's like crazy concept.
Because now when that's the extreme stance now. You know what I mean?
100%. Like, if you're coming up and you're like, you know what, I don't know that question, I'll get it for you right now. Or when there's a big issue, you're not thinking about what your donors think or whether or not you're going to be able to get reelected. You're like, no, there's a new issue right now. I'm going to talk about it in a way that's going to benefit Americans. And that true American first, not Donald Trump America first, where you're basically selling out crypto, foreign countries, all that.
Right.
But it's like an actual America First, where your number one priority is the American people.
Right.
And I think when that is apparent and people can see that, you become almost untouchable. Like I think I don't see anybody right now contesting Marjorie Taylor Greene's spot. Even if AIPAC were to come in,
not even leftists are contesting what she's saying now. You know what
no,
I mean?
100%.
Like,
I mean, they were like, I can't believe I'm like you just said. I can't believe I'm agreeing with her, because it's like when the truth is something that is rare, and someone comes in and they tell the truth, it's a breath of fresh air.
Right,
and you're
for
like,
sure.
wow,
For sure.
And you can really get behind someone.
I think like that's why, like, for example, like Mamdani's gonna win. You know what I mean? Because like, even whether he's being a true person or just being a true politician and lying to everybody, like, is yet to be seen. But like, he's gonna win because he's running on that, like, calling out truths and like being with the people. You know what I mean? And I think we need more of that moving forward, like from on all levels of government, because I think that's the only way we really change things peacefully, I guess. You know, like, you got to root out all the rotten, you know, take Nancy Pelosi out of there, take all of these what's his name, Schumer, you know what I mean?
We got to primary. That's the thing too. It's like we have to primary these politicians,
right,
and be like, no,
right,
because like with Mamdani, right? I'm not a socialist. I'm more a right-leaning person. I disagree with his policies just off of like how they're going to work. But in terms of him, it's like, I think it's a good thing he's getting elected.
Right.
Because it's a big middle finger to the establishment.
Right,
saying
exactly.
You must comply.
Right, exactly.
You must comply with the populist movement in this country, or you will not get elected.
Right,
and I think
right.
people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey,
even
others
in New York, Curtis Sliwa, I think his name is, like, he's not gonna win, but like even he's like just divulging truth bombs left and right. You know what I mean? I agree with you. I think that's like the new wave, maybe, I guess, of like these newer age representatives and like assemblymen and women. You know what I mean?
But we have to be careful too with who we're
get to
choosing.
that too, right.
Mainly because Donald Trump was one of those figures too.
Yeah, that's
he
exactly
came
what I was
in
gonna say too.
telling the truth.
You have to be able to discern what when you're being played. You know what I mean? And when like somebody is like legitimately truthful.
Look, it took me a while. It took me a while to lock in and pay attention to Donald Trump's movements, right?
Right.
Why? Because you remember the good things they say, and whenever you're sold, you don't want to. You don't want to come back. Like, for example, I used to work at Verizon. The chances of you coming back and arguing with me over the bill after I already sold it to you is lower than if you were to come in and we're discussing over the bill.
Right.
I'm explaining that kind of.
No, but I understand.
It's like once you're already bought, once you're already sold, the chances of you coming out and being like, this person scammed me or this person was lying and I was tricked, it's hard to say that. Right. It's easier to be like, oh, I didn't vote for this person yet. He's not in office yet. He's a scammer. Look at him.
Right.
It's an easier thing just to say. Or there's no effect there. And with Donald Trump, it took a minute for me to realize that, because why? In 2016, right, is when I first started paying attention to politics. Donald Trump was a figure. I didn't like him when he first got elected, because like I was like, brainwashed by my sister. He's like, he's racist, he's evil, he's gonna destroy the country. It ended up becoming that way, but
your sister was right.
She was right. Well, she was right indirectly. Okay, she was indirectly right. Okay,
oh,
she happened to become correct. But funny. At that point, I started liking Donald Trump. I was like, this guy's telling the truth. This guy's anti-establishment. And it's easy to be like, I'm anti-establishment. They're wrong. I must end up being right. Therefore, I'm correct.
Right.
And that's the issue where we have to stop it there. It's like, just because they're wrong doesn't make you right.
For sure.
And I think Mamdani fits in that camp, right? Just because they're wrong doesn't mean he's going to be right.
For sure.
But it's important to be like,
at least it's different.
The one fact that we know, it's like, okay, we know you may not be right. That's yet to be seen. But the one fact we do know is that they're wrong.
Right.
So when we elect someone like Mamdani, it's like we're like solidifying that fact. It's like these people are wrong. The way they're doing politics is wrong, and we need a new gen of politicians.
For sure.
But we have to be careful that we don't fall into these traps.
1,000%. Because you said it best. That's how Trump won in 2016. And I had this argument with my old roommate too, because like he used to be like super MAGA, like, and now he like cooled off a little bit, but like I was trying to explain to him that like I'll give it to you that 2016 Trump, sure, I would give him that he's like. He ran on being like anti-establishment.
Even 2020
like,
Trump, because
2020 Trump is fully establishment. You know what I mean? Like he might run on fully establishment. You know what I mean? By that point, like
he's like vaccine stuff, maybe.
Like just in general, by the end of his term, I think he got fully established-ized. You know what I mean? Like 2020 Trump, second term Trump is not the same Trump that ran in 2016.
No, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's 100%
like,
true.
I said it from like the beginning when he started to run again. Like, that's a bought Trump at this point. You know what I mean? Like, he could say whatever he wants on TV. Like, establishment, like 1,000% establishment.
Yeah, I think definitely that's the case now too. And I think a lot of Republicans are kind of hesitant to say this because Donald Trump was attacked on every single side.
Right.
They were trying to go after him legally. They were trying to smear him in the media. This guy had like 98% like negative media coverage, which even now he doesn't have that much negative media coverage. It's like I think that there was a full on like
Dogpiling?
multilateral attack dogpile on Donald Trump, which kind of made him look like that.
The savior, right? It's like how you say, well, like Nick Fuentes, like he keeps getting like shut down and censored. Oh, you must be cooking. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that was the same thought process behind Trump in 2016.
That's 100.
You
I
know?
think in 2022 because I think the whole his entire administration, that 4-year administration, his first term, he was being attacked and roadblocked by Democrats and also establishment Republicans who didn't like him anyways, but had to go and kind of like kiss the ring a little bit because he was popular. So he was being attacked on all sides, and that kind of made him look like this magnanimous, like the one figure who will help and save America.
It gave him more of that image of being like Neo. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's why I think I was attached to Trump. I was like, look, this guy, you know, he might not be the best person. He might not explain things the best way.
He's different, right?
But he's different.
And then you compare it to like Hillary Clinton, who's like a she-devil.
Yeah,
you know
Hillary
what I mean?
Clinton,
Like, so like I understand why people voted for Trump in 2016. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, same argument for Kamala, because Kamala and Hillary Clinton are very like cut from the same cloth, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Just established like puppet president in a matter of speaking.
Yeah.
You know, like
Hillary is Kamala with brains.
Right. You know, like so, but still at the same time, like 2020 he ran, right? Already in a like that's not Neo, that's Agent Smith. You know what I mean? Running like you might say he's Neo, but he's not. You know, like, and I think a lot of people got duped by that. You know, like, because like look at how many months has it been since he's been in office? You know, like, and like giving bailouts to Argentina. You know what I mean? 2 bailouts to Argentina. It's $40 billion gone to Argentina during our government shutdown, even though people here need it. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I feel like definitely his second term around, full on establishment.
Oh no, his like I guess I wasn't locked in 2020. You know, it was kind of just like whatever. I forgot how old I was. I was like 16 or something like that. I was low IQ back then. I think after this one, his 2024 race was the most. I think it took a break. I needed a break from him.
Right.
And he's like, get out of the media real quick.
That might have been it too. Right.
I need a break. He came back, and I was like, whoa, this isn't the same person.
Right.
Particularly with anti-war, I think that was the biggest issue with him being anti-war, him saying he doesn't want no new wars. And now we're fighting Venezuela.
Right.
He's backing Ukraine
he's
against Russia, and he's
threatening.
He's threatening to send weapons and missiles to pierce into Russian territory to Ukraine.
Right.
He's fully backed on doing tricks on it for Israel. I mean, but that's
yeah, for sure. But that's any politician.
Yeah, that's any politician.
You know what I mean?
It's like you can't
not to
even
go down the
escape
conspiracy
that.
rabbit hole, but like,
I don't even think it's conspiracy, honestly, at this point.
Right.
I don't
think so either. Like the conspiracy part is like the last one being JFK, but
oh yeah, well I don't really know much about that.
But that's for our conspiracy podcast.
Yeah, we can have a conspiracy podcast after this, which actually I think would be pretty good.
Yeah,
like,
we
bring up like stupid conspiracies, like the Chuck E. Cheese pizza.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll talk about it after.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But I think like in terms of that whole situation, I think he fully sold out the crypto scam BS.
For sure, dude. Him and Melania pump and dump the crypto coin, right?
Was it the Trump coin one?
It was the Trump coin. I know Melania had a coin also. Like I didn't follow up to see if she pump and dumped that one also, but it's just crazy that's your president.
And you know it's also another thing too. It's like
Haktua girl went into like internet oblivion for pumping and dumping her coin. You know what I mean? That's the president.
Yeah, true.
You know, like it's crazy. I totally agree. I think 100%.
You can't have hobbies no more. A president can't have hobbies anymore.
100%. I think he sold out American even labor, but like that goes back.
It's not him receiving multi-million-dollar jet,
right?
Him like things like that, where it's like, dude, like, can we just pretend at least to be non-corrupt?
Right.
Can we just pretend?
Right. And in a way, I'm kind of thankful to Trump that like he's not being subtle about it, because at least now we're finally being like, whoa, the U.S. is doing some messed up things like with foreign policy. You know what I mean? Like,
I think our inheritance has been hijacked. Our country is supposed to be the best country in the world. It's set up to be the best country in the world. the place we are in the world in terms of like geographically.
yeah. We're
Right? It's
blessed.
like we're blessed. We have two
We only have to worry
gigantic
about two
oceans on each
countries.
side. Canada's barely a country.
But what I'm saying is like we only have to worry about two countries, and neither of them will ever stage like an invasion or anything like that. You know what I mean? So like, because I always say Americans live in a bubble here.
We do live in a
because
bubble.
we're so far away from everything.
But we could use that to our advantage,
For
and we
sure,
have,
for
and we
sure,
have,
for sure.
But right now, it's like we're trying to pierce out of our bubble, and we're just trying to spread our tendrils, like pull up the original meme of Cold War Soviet meme, where it's like it's the tendrils of communism trying to go and take over.
Right.
It's like that's us right now.
For sure.
And
For
we
sure.
need to chill with that. We need to start
sure.
focusing on America first. And I think that's what a large portion of people are focused on. From far left, Bernie Sanders, AOC level politics, to right-leaning politics, we're trying to focus on America first.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's overall the goal, the common goal between both. You know what I mean? I agree with that.
I
just
don't
not
think
doing
right
it.
now
We're just not doing it.
we're not doing it because our country is overrun with bad actors.
For sure.
Who are,
yeah, on both sides.
and I was saying
For
this
sure.
before. I think that because we were talking about like how to stop this corruption, right? You could either you can ban lobbying, you can ban taking money in any way,
Gotta wear your sponsors on your sleeve.
right? And it gets to a point exactly wear your sponsor on your sleeve like NASCAR, but also it's like we want the most highly elite people to run our country, right? So we can't be like, okay, you make no money, you're destitute and poor, you have the same clothes that you wear every day to Congress, and that's it, right? Let me continue. So it's like you can't do it that way. You have to incentivize like elite level people who are very smart and know about politics to come in and want to actually take a break from being in the private sector and making millions to go to the public sector and actually produce for the American people. So you want that incentive there, so you can't just give them nothing. But then I think, and now the point we're at is we're no longer incentivizing the best people. We're incentivizing the best talkers.
For
And the
sure.
best
And that's what I was
swindlers
gonna say.
to come in. And now it's like we kind of had a filter system, right? Where it's like we're trying to have the best people to come in by voting so the American people can decide. And it became into a who can swindle the American people into
for sure.
thinking that they're the best.
For sure.
And that's where we're at now, where the majority of the politicians are just the best at swindling.
For sure.
Instead of the best, like they're the best
I
salesmen.
think maybe like a good way to like counter that, and obviously it sounds easier said than done, but it would be like no more career politicians. You know what I mean? Like your whole career can't be a politician. For you to run for president, whatever. Like, for example, like Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa is Portugal's president. Before he ran for like government, all that, he was a professor for like 30 or 40 years. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that like you have to be a professor, but you should be learned in like, because then like you said, it's all talkers. Because you being a career politician, that's what you're trained to do is just talk. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, it's empty talk, and that's why like there's always the joke that election promises never get fulfilled. It's because they're trained to do that. You know what I mean? Like you said, they're charismatic, they're good talkers. So it's who can swindle the best. You know, like I think maybe, and most of them are out of touch. You know, because like you live your whole life in the political bubble. You don't know what day to day people are doing. You know, like so I think maybe like career politicians shouldn't be a thing anymore. I agree with like the NASCAR thing, like divulge your sponsors and your donors and.
No foreign nationals able to do any
PACs,
money.
no PACs of any kind. You know, like I think those are stepping stones. And see, because then it's hard because it's like, how do you determine who's the corrupt and who's not? Because I would say you need to root out all of these like establishment like politicians, you know, and like replace them with people with good intentions. And
But that's the mandate for the people to do. Like the people have to do that.
And that 1,000%, that's on us. Because like at the end of the day, we hold the power, whether we realize it or not, you know, but we have to take the steps to getting to that, you know, like we got to hold impeachments for people who cross boundaries. Nancy Pelosi should be impeached. She should not be in government for 40 years with running uncontested. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's because she has big name recognition. Her
She
main
sells
core
out.
base,
Right.
her main core base in her district is very pro.
right,
Nancy
and it goes back
Pelosi.
to like lobbies. You know what I mean? Like ban lobbying. You know what I mean? And also give like I think you said this last week. Give them a comfortable enough life. Like provide them a house. Give them no incentive to take more money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but also like give them the same health care as like everyday people. You know,
I think
like,
we should just nuke them out of orbit, figuratively, not literally, because we can't waste nukes on one person. To just Like if you are caught even looking at a box of cigars as a gift,
right,
nuked, get out of here.
I think that's high treason.
You're
dude.
gone.
You know what
High
I mean?
treason,
Like,
prison 40 years.
especially
goodbye.
like personal gifts, dude. That's crazy to me.
Like you
know?
shouldn't bro. You shouldn't even be getting gifts from your mom, bro. Sorry. It's done. You
Right.
want to be a politician? Those next 4 years, bro, you're living as
Right.
a like. What would it be? A nomad? Like you're
Right,
living
right,
you're
right.
living off what the government's giving you,
And then like people always say,
and
like,
that's it.
But yeah, I agree because people always say, well, like it's people. They're just people, and people make mistakes. And it's like, well, dude, like in that capacity, you have to be held to a higher standard. You know what I mean?
100%.
Same thing with like cops. When cops are in uniform, you're held to a higher standard. You're not a normal citizen. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
And you can't use that like the argument of
Argument,
you're just
right.
a regular person. Like
Right.
who else wouldn't accept millions of dollars? It's like that's kind of your whole
That's the whole
purpose
point,
of being,
right.
being here. That's why we elected you.
because you're supposed to say no.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Agreed.
You're supposed to be better than the average person.
And like it should be because then it holds on us because it's like the moment we find something out like that, automatically next day we should like be making movements for impeachment or like you know what I mean, holding elections to re-elect another proper candidate. You know what I mean? Like that comes and I guess also true bureaucracy and you have to wait a certain amount of years or terms or whatever. You know, like
it's
practice
easy to say too because it's like we don't want to be too harsh because then what if there's a fake story
Right,
and then
right,
there's
right.
like a huge push to get people out and
right.
this ends up not being
It becomes
true.
witch hunts and like
Yeah, there ends up
right.
becoming witch hunts.
It's a
People start
slippery
using
slope.
that.
Right.
Like politicians start using that as a weapon in order to
Right.
take away
And-
people
and
they don't
I'm
like.
glad you said that too, because like politicians are gonna adapt. You know, like we were talking about APAC last week, or was it the week before? Regardless, we were talking about APAC.
We always talk about APAC.
And,
Let's
like,
be honest.
I saw this tweet by I forgot. I think he was a senator but he said it so perfect. He's like the new wave of politicians are gonna run on being non-APAC, even though they're still accepting like under the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or they're just getting like exactly. It's like
So like we have to be
Exactly.
super vigilant towards that, and that falls on us. You know what I mean? That doesn't fall on just on Track APAC. That falls on all of us to hold all of our representatives accountable. You know, like from city level to federal level.
yeah, and it's also too. It's like I think that there's like an ego thing.
For sure.
We can wrap it up on this too. I think there's a big ego thing with a lot of people who get into those positions. Not even just the top position, right? Everyone wants the Iron Throne. Everyone wants to be the president. Or everyone wants to be a senator or whatever. But even like lower level positions in that area, it's like so much ego comes with like, oh, I'm the assistant for this senator.
Right.
Or I'm the person who does this for the senator, and then they won't hold each other accountable. Kind of gets in
sure,
that police thing where it's
Right.
like, or the police thing where a cop won't call out another cop because
Thin blue line.
the thin blue line, and I think there's
Right.
a thin. We can call it red line because
Sure, why
they're
not?
evil.
Right.
Because they're evil.
Why not?
We have the thin red line where they're not gonna call each other out.
Gang mentality.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Or
Like-
they won't call each other out in their own gang. Because
Right.
obviously,
For sure,
Bloods versus
for
Crips,
sure,
Republicans versus
for
Democrats. I
sure.
call you out. Of course, that's
Right.
super easy.
Is it a
but-
coincidental that they're also red and blue?
Yeah, literally.
You
Yeah,
know,
true.
like-
Very true. So yeah, it's like it comes with that too, where there's a lot of people who get in those positions. They feel super egotistical
Right,
about
for
the
sure,
position they
for
have.
sure.
They think that they're better than the average
Superior,
person,
right.
superior, whatever. And then that's a big issue. And it comes in with like us as the American people, as you said, we have to hold these positions accountable.
For sure.
We have to hold these people accountable. We have to hold media figures like me and you
just
now.
as much
Yeah,
accountable,
just as much
right? Because
accountable.
me and you, like our audience might not be huge, but we fall into like the potential of spreading false information or false narrative. So I agree with that. You for sure need to keep your media in check as well. You know what I mean? Like, and that's part of the issues now is our media's not in check.
100%. And I think a lot of people have this disconnect where it's like, oh, I'm not part of the mainstream media. I don't watch mainstream media. I watch this particular podcast.
Right, but they parrot the same things.
But they parrot the exact
Right,
same things, and
right.
they act in that same sheepish mentality
Right,
as
right.
these boomers. I mean, not to call out boomers
Still,
specifically,
right.
but like people who are just watching Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, like these types of things, where they'll just kind of repeat the same talking points because it's easy.
Right.
And we do the same
Yeah,
thing. A lot
for
of
sure.
young people do the same thing with podcasters, and it's kind of it's the same scapegoat where it's like,
Right.
no. Everyone needs to look at the facts for themselves.
But
Everyone needs to
that's
think
the main
critically.
thing because like regardless if it's Fox or a podcaster or a YouTuber or whatever, people don't do the work to like confirm. They just take it at face value. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes sure they'll be right and they did the homework for you. You know what I mean? But like other times you should probably look for yourself. You
or
know,
the
like
person's bought out. Like for example,
exactly,
when we're talking
you know,
about
like-
MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, like we kind of have this understanding that's like this is mainstream media.
establishment
It's
media,
establishment
right.
media. They have to be nice to certain politicians, so they get certain interviews.
Right,
they
right,
have
right,
to
right.
they have to play this. They have to
play the game.
play the game.
Right.
And I think we have that same issue with podcasters. We have
For
the same
sure.
issue with these things.
Especially
and
since,
also
like-
too, like if we take into account the $7,000 that people were getting for promoting Israel
Pro-Israeli
things,
propaganda,
it's like
right.
these people who own podcasts or have these TikTok accounts, they could be just as swayed or even corrupted
For sure.
as these mainstream media
If anything,
platforms.
easier.
If anything,
you know,
easier.
like what's $7,000 to NBC? What's $7,000 to like Joe Schmo who has a YouTube channel? You know what I mean? Like,
Per post.
right? You know what I mean?
It's a
like,
crazy, yeah.
so I, if anything, I feel like they're in more danger to be bought out, and it just further reinforces do your own homework. You know what I mean? Look things up yourself from different sources on both sides, because like it's very easy to find things that already prove your preconceived notion of whatever you believed. You know what I mean? Like it's hard when you see things that contradict it, and you're like, well, damn. You know what I mean? Like I like to think I'm that kind of person who like my opinions shift with information. You know what I mean? Like just because I think one thing, I'm not gonna hold it to the grave if like studies come out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
agree
saying?
with
Like-
you. I think most people like to say that.
right,
Just that most people don't do that.
right.
So, I mean,
No, I
yeah.
100% agreed. For
I
sure.
mean, but we can leave it there. I think we had a very good conversation today. Everyone who's watching, thank you so much for joining us. If you like puppies and nice things like a good weather, drop a like, drop a comment, drop a subscription. I know you want to be updated for the next conversation because we have great conversations here. So drop a subscription, hit that bell. You know what to do. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye-bye.
If anything, we probably have a part 2 to this convo.
Yeah, honestly, we could, to be honest.
But yeah, stay with us, y'all.
Peace.